In the capital city stood a grand courthouse, a place where truth and justice were supposed to shine. Every morning people walked in and out of the tall marble building, lawyers carrying files, guards standing in neat lines, and citizens coming for hearings. Among them was a royal guard named Rayan, known for his discipline and calm nature. He was not from a rich family, but his honesty and dedication had earned him a place among the royal protectors. Rayan wore his royal blue uniform with pride. He always arrived early, checking every gate, making sure the area was safe before the judges and officers came in. His work was simple but very important. One mistake could cause confusion, so he always stayed alert. People respected him, except for one man, Judge Harris. Judge Harris was known for his strict and proud nature. He believed that everyone below his position should stay quiet and follow orders without question. Many feared his anger, but Rayan never showed fear. He simply did his duty. One morning, the court was more crowded than usual. A big case was being heard that day, involving a well-known businessman. The entrance was full of people, and Rayan was checking everyone's passes carefully. Suddenly, a car stopped at the front gate, and Judge Harris stepped out. Rayan saluted him respectfully and said politely, "Good morning, sir. May I see your pass, please?" Judge Harris looked surprised. "My pass? Do you not recognize me? I am the senior judge of this court." Rayan stayed calm and replied, "Yes, sir, I know who you are. But it's my duty to check everyone. No one is allowed to enter without showing a pass, not even me." The judge's face turned red. People nearby turned to watch. He felt embarrassed that a guard was asking him for a pass in front of others. "How dare you question me?" he shouted. "You're just a guard. Do you think you can stop me?" Rayan did not lose his respect. He said softly, "Sir, I am only following rules. If I break them once, everyone else will too. I promise it will only take a moment." Judge Harris pushed his coat aside and said sharply, "Move out of my way. I will make sure you regret this." He walked past Rayan and entered the building without showing his pass. The people whispered among themselves. Some thought the guard was right. Others feared for him. Rayan felt disappointed but continued his duty. He believed that one day, truth always finds a way. Inside the court, Judge Harris was still angry. During the hearing, he kept thinking about the guard who had insulted him. He could not focus properly on the case. He saw Rayan standing outside the courtroom door, guarding silently, and that made him even more irritated. When the hearing ended, he called for the head security officer. "That guard at the entrance," he said coldly. "I want him punished. How dare he stop a judge?" The officer tried to explain. "Sir, he was only following the rule that all visitors must show a pass, including staff." He meant no disrespect, but the judge refused to listen. "Rules are for ordinary people, not for me. Tell that guard he is suspended until further notice." When Rayan heard the order, he did not argue. He simply bowed his head and said, "As you wish, sir." He walked away quietly, his heart heavy but his spirit unbroken. He believed that respect must go both ways, no matter the position. As he left the court, many workers looked at him with sympathy. They admired his patience and calm nature. That evening, Rayan went home and told his mother what had happened. She looked at him with gentle eyes and said, "Son, never feel sad for doing what is right. Sometimes life tests us through unfair moments. Be patient, truth never hides forever." Her words gave Rayan strength. He decided not to complain or argue. Instead, he waited and trusted that life would bring justice in its own time. He didn't know that the same man who insulted him would soon face a surprising turn of fate, one that would change everything inside that courthouse. The next morning, the courthouse buzzed with whispers. Everyone had heard what happened between Judge Harris and the royal guard, Rayan. Some said the guard was too bold. Others said the judge had gone too far. But no matter what people thought, one truth remained. Rayan was gone. The main gate looked strangely quiet without him. He was known for greeting everyone politely and keeping the area organized. Now, without his calm presence, the guards seemed tense and unsure. Even visitors noticed the difference. Inside the building, Judge Harris walked through the halls with pride. He believed he had done the right thing. In his eyes, he had defended his dignity, but deep inside, something bothered him. Every time he passed by the gate, he remembered Rayan's calm eyes and respectful tone. He tried to ignore it, but it stayed in his mind like a quiet echo. Later that day, a new case was added to the schedule. a corruption case involving one of the royal suppliers. The person accused was an important man named Mr. Kareem, who had many connections. The case was sensitive and needed careful handling. Judge Harris was assigned to oversee it. The royal office sent a few guards to ensure proper security for this case. Among them was none other than Rayan, the head of the royal guards, unaware of the personal issue between Rayan and the judge, selected him because of his discipline and honesty. When Rayan arrived at the courthouse again, everyone was surprised. Some guards greeted him happily, but others warned him quietly, "Be careful. The judge is still angry." Rayan simply nodded and said, "I will only do my duty. Nothing more, nothing less." When Judge Harris saw Rayan standing near the courtroom door, his face turned serious. "You again?" he said sharply. Rayan saluted politely. "Yes, sir. I am here on royal duty for the special case." Judge Harris frowned. "I thought I had you suspended." Rayan answered respectfully, "Sir, this order came directly from the royal office. I have been asked to serve here today. If you wish, you may confirm it with the office," and Judge Harris stayed silent. He could not argue against the royal command, so he turned away and entered the courtroom without another word. As the hearing began, Rayan stayed near the door, his eyes alert and calm. Inside, the court was full of reporters, lawyers, and witnesses. The case was complicated, with many documents and records being presented. During the hearing, Mr. Kareem stood confidently. He smiled as his lawyer spoke smoothly. Everything seemed in his favor, but one piece of evidence was missing: an official royal clearance document that he claimed to have. Judge Harris asked, "Do you have that document with you?" Kareem nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. It was delivered yesterday by one of the royal guards." "I gave it to your office." Judge Harris looked surprised. "My office? I have received nothing," the lawyer insisted. "It was handed to a court official, sir." The judge called the court clerk, but the clerk denied receiving any such file. Confusion spread in the room. The missing paper was crucial. Without it, the case could not continue properly. At that moment, Rayan noticed something unusual. A junior court assistant was acting nervous near the corner. He kept looking around and holding a folder tightly. Rayan quietly walked over and asked kindly, "Brother, are you all right?" The man hesitated, his hands shaking. I was told to keep this file safe." Rayan looked at the folder and saw a royal seal on it, the same type used for the missing document. He realized something was wrong, but spoke gently. "Let me take this to the judge. It might be important for the case." The assistant nodded slowly, almost in relief, and handed over the folder. Rayan walked respectfully to the front and said, "Excuse me, Your Honor. I found this folder with the royal seal near the back. It might be what you were looking for." Judge Harris frowned but took the folder. As he opened it, his eyes widened. It was indeed the missing document, proof that the royal supply deal had been misused. It showed signatures and false transactions made by Kareem himself. The courtroom filled with murmurs. The lawyer's smile faded instantly. Judge Harris felt a mix of surprise and disbelief. The same guard he had insulted yesterday had just saved the entire hearing from disaster. He looked at Rayan silently, unsure how to respond. For the first time, he saw the guard not as a simple worker, but as a man of integrity who cared about truth. Rayan saluted again and said humbly, "I only did what was right, sir." The judge gave a short nod but said nothing more. His pride stopped him from speaking, but deep inside, his heart began to change. As Rayan stepped back to his position, whispers filled the hall. Some said it was luck, others said it was destiny, but everyone knew that this royal guard had just reminded the court what true duty meant. The next day, the entire courthouse was filled with quiet conversations. Everyone was still talking about how the royal guard, Rayan, had found the missing document during the important trial. His calm action had turned the case in a new direction. Some people called it luck, while others said it was a sign of his honesty. Judge Harris entered the courtroom early that morning, his face thoughtful. He could not forget the moment Rayan had walked forward with that folder. For the first time, the proud judge began to question his own behavior. He remembered how harshly he had spoken to Rayan at the gate and how quickly he had punished him. Now that same man had saved him from embarrassment. Rayan, as usual, arrived on time and took his post at the courtroom door. His uniform was neatly pressed, his face calm and his eyes focused. He did not expect thanks or praise. He believed that doing good did not need a reward. As the hearing began, Mr. Karim and his lawyer tried to explain the false document, but the truth was already clear. The royal office confirmed that the signatures were fake, and the money trail was traced to Karim's own company. The judge announced that a new investigation would be opened. After the session, Judge Harris stayed behind in his office, lost in thought. He asked his assistant to bring Rayan to him. When Rayan entered the room, he saluted respectfully. The judge looked at him for a moment and said, "You may sit." Rayan shook his head politely. "Thank you, sir, but I prefer to stand." "It is my duty," Judge Harris sighed softly. "You are a strange man, Rayan. You were suspended by my order, yet you still served faithfully. You could have ignored the situation yesterday, but you chose to help." Rayan smiled gently. "Sir, my job is to protect justice, not to hold grudges. We all serve the same purpose in different ways." The judge stayed silent for a while, then said, "I may have judged you wrongly. I spoke in anger and pride. You showed more respect and discipline than I did." Rayan bowed slightly. "We all make mistakes, sir. What matters is what we learn from them." Those words touched the judge more deeply than he expected. He nodded slowly. "You have earned my respect, Rayan." When Rayan left the room, the judge sat back in his chair, realizing how much humility could teach a person. He decided he would correct his mistake officially. Later that day, the judge sent an official letter to the Royal Security Office, canceling Rayan's suspension. He wrote that the guard had acted with complete professionalism and that his discipline had protected the court's reputation. The letter was signed and sealed with the court's stamp. When Rayan received the document, he felt grateful. His mother smiled when he told her the news. "You see, my son," she said, "truth always returns like light after a long night." But something strange began to happen in the courthouse. The assistant who had held the missing folder started behaving nervously again. He avoided eye contact and spoke very little. One afternoon, Rayan noticed him leaving the building quickly with another man in plain clothes. Rayan's sharp eyes followed them until they turned around the corner. He had a feeling that the case was not over yet. The missing folder had revealed one truth, but there might be more hidden behind it. Rayan decided to stay alert, even when his duty ended for the day. That evening, while locking up one of the side doors of the courthouse, he heard low voices coming from inside one of the offices. He quietly stepped closer. Through the glass window, he saw the same assistant handing over some papers to another man. The man's face was half hidden by a hat, but Rayan could see enough to realize they were exchanging documents secretly. He did not rush inside or make noise. Instead, he carefully noted the time and the room number. The next morning, he decided to inform the head of security. When the head heard the report, he looked serious. "If what you saw is true, Rayan, we may have a deeper problem inside the court itself." Rayan nodded. "I believe someone is trying to hide or sell information from the royal cases." The head security officer sighed. "We will handle this carefully. Do not tell anyone else for now. Just stay watchful." The next few days, Rayan continued his duty as usual, but his eyes missed nothing. He saw movements, whispers, and small exchanges that others ignored. He began to understand that the truth behind the missing folder was only the beginning of something bigger. Judge Harris noticed Rayan's quiet watchfulness and called him once again. "You seem thoughtful these days," he said. "Is something wrong?" Rayan hesitated, then replied carefully, "Sir, I believe there may be people inside the court working secretly for money. I'm not sure yet, but I am watching closely." Judge Harris frowned. "If that is true, then this court is in danger. Keep me informed, but be careful. We must find the truth before it finds us." And so the guard and the judge, once divided by pride, were now quietly working toward the same goal. What started as an insult had turned into an unexpected partnership to protect justice. The morning air around the courthouse felt heavy. People walked faster than usual, whispering quietly to one another. News had spread that something strange was happening inside the building. Files were going missing, and important documents were being found in the wrong places. Rayan stood at his usual position near the entrance, his sharp eyes watching everything. His calm face showed no emotion, but his mind was busy. For several nights he had been thinking about what he saw, the assistant meeting a man in secret. He felt sure that something was wrong, but he still had no proof strong enough to act. Judge Harris arrived soon after. When Rayan saw him, he saluted respectfully. The judge gave a small nod and said quietly, "Meet me in my office later. We must talk." As the court opened, hearings continued as normal. The halls echoed with footsteps, voices, and the shuffle of papers. But under the surface, both Rayan and the judge knew there was tension growing. The trust that once filled the courthouse was beginning to fade. Later, when the crowd thinned, Rayan walked to the judge's office. Harris was standing near the window holding a file. He looked serious. "I received another report this morning," he said. "2 confidential documents from the royal office are missing. They were last seen in the record room." Rayan nodded. "Sir, I believe the people behind this are still inside. They know the system well." Judge Harris sat down and leaned forward. "You mentioned before that you saw an assistant acting suspiciously. Do you still think he is involved?" "Yes, sir," Rayan replied firmly. "He is nervous all the time, and I once saw him passing files to someone outside. I did not interfere because I had no order." The judge thought for a moment, then said, "We must find proof. Tonight, the court will be closed for cleaning. I will inform the head of security to give you permission to watch the record room quietly." "Do not let anyone see you," Rayan agreed without hesitation. "I will do my duty, sir." That night, when the courthouse was dark and empty, Rayan returned wearing his uniform. The only light came from the lamps in the hallway. He moved silently, listening carefully to every sound. The large record room was filled with shelves of old cases and sealed files. He hid behind one of the tall racks and waited. Minutes passed slowly. Then he heard a soft click. The door opened. 2 shadows entered the room. Rayan recognized one of them immediately. It was the same assistant. The other man wore a cap and carried a small bag. The assistant whispered, "Hurry up. We only have a few minutes," the man replied. "Where are the files?" Rayan watched them open a drawer and pull out several documents with royal seals. They began taking pictures of each page with a phone. Rayan stayed silent, waiting for the right moment. He knew the judge was right. This was the proof they needed. When the man moved closer to the door, Rayan stepped forward slowly and said in a firm but calm voice, "Stop. You are under court investigation." The assistant froze. The man with the cap turned quickly, his eyes wide with shock. He tried to hide the phone behind his back, but Rayan said firmly, "Put it on the table. No one will be harmed. Just cooperate." Both men stood still, unsure what to do. At that moment, the head of security entered with 2 other guards. Judge Harris was with them. The men were caught completely off guard. The head guard took the phone and checked it. The pictures of royal files were still on the screen. It was clear proof of their wrongdoing. Judge Harris looked at them with disappointment. "You were trusted to protect the truth," he said quietly, "and yet you tried to sell it." The assistant began to cry softly. "Sir, I was forced. They offered me money and said they would help me get promoted." The judge's voice stayed calm. "The law will decide that. For now, you will be taken into custody for questioning." The guards escorted the men out of the room. Rayan stood silently beside the judge. Judge Harris turned to him and said, "You did well tonight. Your patience and discipline saved this court again." Rayan bowed slightly. "I only did my duty, sir. Justice must be protected." The judge gave a small smile. "You remind me that respect is not given by position but by actions. I once insulted you without reason. Today I see what true honor looks like." Rayan said softly, "We all learn, sir. Life teaches us through small moments." As they left the record room, the first light of dawn began to touch the sky. The courthouse stood silent but safe. The truth had come out, and justice was once again protected. But Rayan had a feeling that this was not the end. The man in the cap had escaped quietly before the guards entered fully. Someone bigger was behind all this, and the next morning the courthouse seemed calmer, but beneath the surface there was tension. Everyone had heard about the assistant being caught stealing official files. The royal office sent their investigators to collect details. The people praised Rayan for his alertness, saying he was the reason justice was safe once again. But Rayan's mind was not at peace. He kept remembering the man who escaped that night, the one wearing a cap. The guards had not seen his face properly. Rayan was sure that the man was not working alone. Someone powerful was helping him from the shadows. Judge Harris shared the same worry. When Rayan met him in the morning, the judge said seriously, "The 2 men we caught confessed that there was another person who gave them orders. They said he wanted copies of royal case files, but they refused to reveal his name. Rayan nodded. That means they are afraid of him, sir. Only someone with influence can make them stay silent. The judge leaned back in his chair and said, Yes, and that means the problem is bigger than we thought. We must move carefully. Later that day, Rayan was assigned to stand near the royal office section of the court. From there, he could observe people coming in and out for official matters. He stood quietly, watching faces, gestures, and movements. Hours passed, but nothing seemed strange, until a tall man in a gray suit entered. He walked confidently, carrying a small briefcase, and greeted everyone with a polite smile. But something about his eyes caught Rayan's attention. They were cold, sharp, and restless, as if they were searching for something. Rayan asked politely, Sir, may I see your entry card? The man showed a valid court ID. It looked genuine, but Rayan had seen many like it and noticed that the security code on it was slightly faded. Still, he did not stop him further. The man entered the royal office section and stayed there for a long time. When he came out, Rayan noticed a small paper sticking slightly from his briefcase. It had the royal seal mark. Before Rayan could ask anything, the man quickly adjusted the file and walked away. Rayan made a note in his small pocket diary, the same diary he used to record suspicious activities. He wrote, Gray suit man, court ID possible fake, visited royal section, carried sealed paper. That evening, Rayan went to Judge Harris and explained what he had seen. The judge listened carefully and said, This could be the man behind the assistant. We need to confirm his identity. They called the record office to check his name from the ID number. The staff replied, Sir, that ID belongs to a worker who left the court 2 years ago. Judge Harris looked up sharply. So it's fake. Rayan said calmly, Then he is not just stealing. He is planning something bigger. The next day they decided to increase security quietly. Rayan was asked to watch near the storage area where new case files were kept. Late in the afternoon, he saw the same man again. He was talking to one of the clerks, pretending to ask about old cases. The clerk seemed confused, and before he could answer, the man walked toward the restricted door. Rayan followed him silently. When the man tried to open the locked door with a key card, Rayan stepped forward. Sir, that area is not open to visitors, he said politely. The man looked startled, then smiled. Oh, I'm sorry. I must have taken the wrong turn. Rayan nodded but kept watching him. The man turned and left, walking faster than before. Rayan's instincts told him that he would return. That evening, Judge Harris called a small secret meeting with the head of security and Rayan. He said, We will catch this man soon. Rayan, I want you to be here after hours again. He will come when no one is around. Rayan agreed. Yes, sir. I will stay until the truth comes out. That night, when the building was dark and silent, Rayan waited near the storage area once again. Hours passed slowly. Just when the clock reached midnight, he heard soft footsteps. The man in the gray suit entered, holding a flashlight. He went straight to the royal section and began searching through drawers. Rayan waited until he started taking pictures again. Then he spoke firmly. You are not allowed here. Stop where you are. The man froze, but then gave a short smile. So you're the guard who caught the others, he said. You are making things difficult for powerful people. Rayan did not respond. He just stepped forward and said calmly, Please hand over the documents. The man slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, pretending to comply. But instead he pressed a button and the lights went out. In the darkness, Rayan heard footsteps running. He moved quickly, using his flashlight, and followed the sound toward the back exit. The man tried to escape through the window, but Rayan blocked his way. The flashlight beam caught his face clearly this time. Rayan finally saw him. It was Mr. Kareem, the same businessman whose case had started it all. Rayan stood firm and said, So you were the one behind everything. Kareem's confident look faded. He realized his secret was out. The sound of guards running echoed through the hall. Judge Harris arrived moments later. He saw Kareem standing in the corner and Rayan holding the phone that contained all the stolen photos. The judge's voice was steady. Mr. Kareem, you thought you could trick justice again. But the same man you once looked down upon has caught you. Rayan stayed silent, his eyes calm but alert, as the guards took Kareem away. Judge Harris turned to Rayan and said quietly, You have done more for justice than many who wear the robe. I am proud of you. Rayan replied simply, Sir, I only did what was right. The next morning, sunlight filled the courthouse, but the air was heavy with surprise. Everyone had heard the news that Mr. Kareem, the powerful businessman, had been caught sneaking into the royal record room. Some could not believe it. A few even whispered that he was too rich to be arrested. But the truth was clear. He had been caught red-handed, and the man who caught him was none other than Rayan, the humble royal guard. Judge Harris arrived early that day. His steps were slower, and his eyes looked thoughtful. He had spent the entire night thinking about what had happened. He remembered the day he had shouted at Rayan in front of everyone. That moment now filled him with regret. He realized how wrong he had been to insult a man who lived by discipline and honesty. As he walked through the corridor, workers and guards stood straight and saluted him. When he passed Rayan's post, he stopped. Rayan immediately saluted respectfully, his face calm as always. Judge Harris smiled faintly. "Rayan, please come to my office after your round." "I wish to speak with you," Rayan nodded. "Yes, sir." Inside his office, the judge looked out the window at the court garden. Birds were sitting on the railing, and the gentle sound of leaves moving in the wind brought a strange peace to his mind. Soon Rayan knocked and entered quietly. The judge gestured for him to sit, but Rayan remained standing. "Sir, I'm fine here," he said humbly. Judge Harris smiled a little. "You never change, Rayan. Always simple, always respectful." Rayan replied, "Duty keeps me strong, sir." "It teaches patience," the judge nodded. "Patience is something I am still learning. You see, when I first met you, I was filled with pride. I thought respect only came from position, but now I understand. It comes from character." Rayan said softly, "We all learn through time, sir. Life gives everyone a chance to see what truly matters." The judge leaned back in his chair. "Last night you proved that real strength is not shown by shouting, but by staying calm when others lose control. You caught a man many feared to confront, and you did it with grace." Rayan bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir. But I only followed my duty. Justice and honesty must always be protected." The judge looked at him with deep respect. "Rayan, you have reminded me of what justice really means. It is not about power, it is about fairness." There was silence in the room for a while. Then the judge stood up and walked toward his desk. He took out a letter sealed with the court's stamp and handed it to Rayan. "This is a commendation letter. The royal office will recognize your service officially. You have not only done your job, you have protected the honor of this court." Rayan looked at the letter but did not open it. "I am grateful, sir, but I was only doing what every guard should do." "Still, I will accept it with respect." Judge Harris smiled. "You truly are a man of humility. I hope everyone here learns from your example." As Rayan left the office, people in the hallway looked at him with admiration. Some guards clapped softly. For the first time, Rayan felt proud, not for fame or praise, but because he had earned respect through honesty. Later in the day, the royal investigators came to take Kareem's full statement. He was calm now, no longer arrogant. The truth had humbled him. When Judge Harris entered the room for the formal questioning, Kareem looked down and said, "I made a mistake, Your Honor. I wanted to cover my wrong actions, and I thought I could use my money and power to do it. But this guard showed me that truth cannot be hidden." The judge nodded slowly. "Everyone falls, Kareem, but those who learn from their fall can still rise again. I hope you understand that." After the session ended, Judge Harris looked at Rayan, who was standing quietly near the door. "You see, Rayan," he said, "your honesty not only caught a guilty man, it changed hearts." Rayan smiled humbly. "Truth always has power, sir. Even when people try to hide it, it finds a way to shine." Days passed, and the courthouse slowly returned to normal. The royal office praised Rayan's bravery publicly. Newspapers wrote about the humble guard who saved the court. But Rayan remained the same simple man. He continued to arrive. Days passed after the great incident in the courthouse. Everything seemed calm again. People had started to smile, the guards had returned to their usual duties, and even the judge seemed lighter in mood. But behind the peace, something was still incomplete. There was a small mystery that no one had noticed yet, a secret that connected Rayan, Judge Harris, and the old case files. One afternoon, Rayan was walking through the back hallway of the court, checking each door like he always did. Suddenly, his eyes fell on a dusty cabinet that was half open. It was the same record room where Mr. Kareem had tried to sneak in. The room had been sealed after the incident, but now it looked slightly open again. Rayan stepped closer. The lock was still hanging there, but it seemed someone had touched it. He carefully opened the door and entered. Inside, files were stacked high and the smell of old paper filled the air. Sunlight entered from a small window, making the dust sparkle. Rayan noticed a folder lying on the floor. It had Judge Harris's name written on it. He picked it up slowly and brushed off the dust. Inside were old court records, but one page caught his attention. It was a letter, handwritten, with the same royal seal as his commendation letter. Out of respect, Rayan took the file straight to Judge Harris. When he entered the judge's office, Harris was reading documents with a calm smile. He looked up and said, "Rayan, my loyal guard, what brings you here?" Rayan placed the file gently on the table. "Sir, I found this in the old record room. It was lying on the floor. I thought it might be important." The judge looked at the folder and frowned slightly. "This file, it's from years ago," he said, opening it carefully. As he read, his eyes widened. The letter inside was one he thought had been lost long ago. He read it silently and his face grew thoughtful. Then he looked at Rayan. "Do you know what this letter is?" he asked. Rayan shook his head. "No, sir." Judge Harris leaned back and said, "This letter was written by my father, who served as a judge before me. It talks about a guard who once saved him from false blame. That guard's name was also Rayan, your grandfather." Rayan stood still, shocked. "My grandfather?" The judge nodded. "Yes, many years ago he worked here just like you. He was honest and loyal. One day someone tried to accuse my father of taking bribes, but your grandfather found proof of his innocence. My father always respected him deeply, but soon after that, your grandfather retired quietly and went back to his village. This letter was meant to honor him, but it was lost before it could be delivered." Rayan's eyes softened with emotion. "I never knew this, sir. My grandfather never spoke about his service. He always said duty is done best when done silently." Judge Harris smiled gently. "It seems honesty runs in your family. Just like your grandfather, you stood for truth without seeking reward." There was a moment of silence. The judge folded the letter carefully and placed it in a clean envelope. "Rayan, I think it is time this letter finds its way to your family. It belongs to you now." Rayan bowed respectfully. "Thank you, sir. My family will feel honored." Later that evening, Rayan took the letter home. His mother, an elderly woman with kind eyes, sat on the porch waiting for him. When he gave her the letter and explained everything, she held it close with tears in her eyes. "Your grandfather always said, 'Truth never disappears. It finds its way through generations.'" Today his words came true, she said softly. Rayan smiled. "He taught us that honesty is never wasted, Mother. Maybe this is his blessing to us." That night, Rayan sat outside his small home, looking at the stars. The air was calm, and he felt a deep peace inside. He thought about how life connects people in ways they never expect. His grandfather had once protected justice, and now, years later, he had done the same without even knowing it. The next morning, when Rayan returned to duty, Judge Harris was waiting for him at the gate. The judge had a warm smile and said, "Rayan, I have decided something. From today you are being promoted to Chief Security Officer of the courthouse. You have earned it, not just through courage but through character." Rayan was surprised. "Sir, I am grateful. I only did my duty." The judge shook his head. "No, Rayan, you did more than duty. You reminded everyone that truth and kindness still exist in this world." Everyone in the courtyard clapped as Rayan received his badge. For the first time, he felt the weight of his work, not as a burden, but as an honor passed down through generations. That day, the courthouse didn't just see a new officer. It saw a living example of honesty and humility, just like the man who came before him. But destiny still had one last chapter to reveal, one that would bring a surprising visitor from the past and change Rayan's path again. A few weeks had passed since Rayan's promotion. The courthouse now felt peaceful again. People had started to trust each other more, and even the small staff members were treated with more respect. The story of how a humble guard stood for truth had spread quietly through the city. Everyone admired Rayan's honesty and calm nature. Every morning, Rayan arrived early like he always did. But now, instead of standing at the gate, he was in charge of all security. He made sure every guard followed the rules kindly and fairly. He never spoke loudly or acted proud of his new post. He believed that true power came from humility, not position. Judge Harris often called him to his office for tea. They talked about life, justice, and family. The once proud judge had changed. He now smiled more often and treated everyone kindly. It was clear that the whole experience had softened his heart. One quiet afternoon, as Rayan was walking through the corridor, a visitor entered the courthouse. It was an old man with gray hair, wearing simple clothes. His eyes were kind but tired, and he carried a small wooden box in his hands. The man looked around, searching for someone. Rayan noticed him and walked over. "Good afternoon, sir. May I help you?" he asked politely. The old man smiled. "Are you Rayan?" Rayan nodded. "Yes, sir. Do I know you?" The man shook his head gently. "No, but I knew your grandfather. My name is Tahir. I worked with him long ago as a clerk in this very courthouse." Rayan's eyes widened in surprise. "You knew my grandfather? Please, come inside." He led the old man to a quiet bench and offered him some water. Tahir placed the small wooden box on the table. "Your grandfather was a noble man," Tahir said softly. "He helped many people, even when no one noticed. Before he passed away, he gave me this box and told me to deliver it to his family someday. I was never able to find you until now." Rayan opened the box carefully. Inside were some old papers, a medal, and a small note written in neat handwriting. The note said, "To my family, never forget that kindness is stronger than pride. Serve others with honesty, and the world will one day remember your heart." Rayan's eyes became moist as he read it. He felt a warmth inside his chest. His mother had always told him that his grandfather was a simple man who believed in goodness, but now he could feel it through these words. Tahir smiled gently. "He would have been proud to see what you have done, Rayan. You followed his path without even knowing it." Rayan bowed his head. "Thank you, sir. These words mean more than any medal or promotion." Just then, Judge Harris entered the hall. When he saw the old man, he stopped. "Tahir, is that really you?" Tahir looked up and smiled. "Yes, Judge Harris. It has been many years." The judge walked closer, amazed. "You worked here when my father was still alive. I remember you. It feels like time has turned back." Rayan stood quietly as the two elderly men shook hands. Judge Harris then looked at the wooden box and said softly, "So the past returns to bless the present." He turned to Rayan and said, "Your grandfather and people like Mr. Tahir were the true strength of this courthouse. They built its honor long before we came." Later that day, Judge Harris called a small gathering in the main hall. All the staff members, guards, and officers stood together. At the front table lay the wooden box with the note and medal. Judge Harris stood up and said, "Today we honor not just a man but a legacy. Years ago, a guard named Rayan saved my father's name. Today, his grandson, also named Rayan, saved the dignity of this court. This medal belongs to a family that proved honesty never dies." Everyone clapped softly as Rayan's mother was invited to the front. Tears filled her eyes as she accepted the box. She looked at her son with pride and whispered, "Your grandfather's spirit lives in you." Rayan bowed deeply, feeling both humble and grateful. The moment was silent yet powerful. When the gathering ended, Rayan stood outside the courthouse looking at the tall building glowing under the sunset. The walls that once felt heavy with pride now felt warm with peace. He thought about how life had tested him and how kindness had guided him through every step. He smiled quietly and said to himself, "Respect is not demanded, it is earned through truth." As the wind passed softly through the courtyard, it carried the faint echo of his grandfather's words, "Kindness is stronger than pride." And, in that peaceful moment, Rayan realized something simple but deep. When a person does what is right, they may face unfairness for a time, but in the end, truth always wins, with quiet strength and lasting respect.